We have two successful entrepreneurs here sitting with me on this fine evening. On to my right is Mr. Navas Meeran of Eastern Group, and to my left is Mr. Prajakt, both of about whom you have heard in the introduction just now. Both of them have looked into their entrepreneurial journey with a different approach, with a creative mindset, and navigated their entrepreneurial journey with a divergent thinking from business ventures to writing and to bestseller. So today, this fine evening, let us walk through a series of questions based on the topic of the day. In fact, the topic is of most important and very important to all of us and most of the entrepreneurs who are sitting here on this audience. So, to both of you, the format of this today evening is the questions are in general, to which both of you have to reply individually. There are some one or two questions which are just posed individually. So, I'll start with the first question. How did you both unlock this creativity in you? I mean, your entrepreneurial journey and your writing skills. Was there any broad methodology you both focused on? I think Navas, you can go first.
Thank you very much, Anand. For me, generally entrepreneurs are mavericks. We come out with things that are not there in the present scenario. We'll think about the future, we'll identify the gap, and then come out with solutions. So for me, I was a person who was entitled to take over from my dad. So there was no much of option left in front of me. I had to run the business which my dad started. But then my role was confined to how do I create it big? How do I make it a scalable proposition? Take it to other frontiers like the other states of India. So that was the fun which I enjoy. And in the course of doing that, I was able to create value, and I took the courage of unlocking the value too. And in this journey, I thought the journey which I navigated or the learning curves which I negotiated, I thought I should put it into letters so that India has completely been changed as far as business is concerned. If you talk about business in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was all debt driven. If you want money, you have to go to the bank, and bank will support you. Whereas in the current scenario, there is flush of capital. Capital is everywhere. You have an idea, there are people to support the idea. So in that case, there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurs coming in and taking organizations to next level. So in that journey, I thought our learning should be penned down, and that becomes a manual for reference so that they again doesn't have to go through the learning curve. That's it from my side.
Yeah. For me, to pretty much the same. My personal passion is to promote entrepreneurship. I believe that in countries like India, if we don't have more job creators, we will have a huge problem going forward. And therefore, several years ago, I made it my personal mission to instigate 100,000 people to be job creators. Now, it doesn't matter whether you create one job or you create 10,000 jobs or a million jobs. But just taking that journey, step into becoming an entrepreneur, was something that I think the country really needs. And therefore, because I've been through a bunch of series of entrepreneurial experiences, in a lot of learnings, especially through my failures, I thought it was important for me to share some of those learnings so that the newer generation, the next set of entrepreneurs that was coming in, they don't necessarily have to go through the same stumbles as I would have gone. And therefore, the attempt in my book was to really capture some of the experiences and learnings that I've got and put it out to people. I also make it a point to mention that this is not a formula. I don't think there's a particular science to building a business or doing an art. This is about anytime when you're doing something, you have to gather experiences and perspectives of different people, and at the end, then you have to really assimilate together and then see in your own context what is relevant. And my attempt was really to put together a variety of perspectives from my vantage point that I had seen, especially as an investor, when you interact with a lot of people, and put it out to other people to benefit from that other people's experience.
Okay. So, how did you both find the connect in this journey? I mean, your connect as an entrepreneur and your writing skill. When you started, how did you feel? Was it a positive thought or a negative or some other thought? And to manage both of this thing, did you both have any psychological tricks to manage your time, and how did you all go forward?
Yeah. Um, See, in the book which I have written was about family business. So, in family business, there are a lot of soft issues. Issues like succession, bringing in professionals, having the right source of governance. So, many of these things, people would like to push it under the carpet. So, I felt that these are all things which is a lifetime reality where one has to admit that these are all things which we need to address. So many families, if I talk about entrepreneurship, if there are four siblings in a family, and when it comes to succession, what happens is the elder one gets he is being designated as the head of business after the father is moved out of. But probably, I'm not sure. The third guy might be more entrepreneurial. He would have taken the business to the next level. That is not being considered. I mean, I'm not saying that all the elders are not entrepreneurial, but meritocracy has to come in once you decide to bring in the next gen leader. That's one thing. Professionalism. We talk about bringing in professionals, but what is the fun by after bringing in the professional, if you're not giving him freedom to operate, there's no fun in it. So how do you align him to be part of the value systems of the organization and then take the organization to the next level? So all these things, it's are soft issues which people have to address. And that's the thing which I felt I've done in my book.
I only asked you one question. Was there any psychological trick you engaged in managing your time between both of this?
It's nothing. First and foremost, I'm not a writer. I took the help of one of my friend to put it into paper. But then, I was able to express myself. I was able to express myself in such a way that, every family has got some sort of an emotional thread which goes from one end to another. Say, for example, as a son, I may not be the best of talent to run the business, but my mother probably would force my dad to put me into the top slot. So I should understand that just by being the son of the promoter, I am eligible to run the show. That's not the right thing. There might be people within my sibling might be equally competent to run the show. Or if that doesn't work, somebody else has to come from outside who has got an industry experience to take to the next level. So that is the link which I thought I should be connecting.
You know, for me, it took a lot of time to really break the mental block of overcoming the fear that maybe people don't want to listen to my story, what's there in my story. Because while there were some modest successes, there were lots of dips as well, and there were lots of failures. So one of the things I started doing was, you know, there was a platform called Quora, there still is, and people used to ask some question, and in an area where I had some experience, and I used to give a long answer. And I started getting lots of likes on that and lots of retweets and whatever that. And over a period of time, I realized that in fact, a lot of people are interested in learning from your failures rather than just listening to the success stories that we've got. And that gave me the courage to really think in terms of say, okay, maybe if I put everything down in terms of what have been the ups and downs, maybe there's a story to be told. I really started with a table of contents. I asked lots of entrepreneurs, what are the kind of questions that you would want somebody to answer in one go if you were to really start off, have an idea clicking in your mind and you wanted to get in and do a business. And that table of contents really became my reference point to really start putting content and, you know, into place. And wherever my own experiences were not comprehensive enough, I started talking to people and putting their perspectives onto this as well. And one of the things, therefore, I to tell all my friends, whatever experience that they've had, whether it's a professional experience or whether it's an entrepreneurial experience, go ahead and start telling your stories, even if it is in the form of a blog and stuff. You don't know whom it might inspire. Somebody else who's going through that same challenge or going through the same dilemma of should I do this or should I not do that? Maybe just your sharing that story in that forum where the person is able to one-on-one read it might just go and inspire somebody. It doesn't cost anything to start a blog. And believe you me, that mindset in this, but what is my story? Is that interesting, not interesting? You will be surprised if you tell it well, how many people find that story very interesting. And I found it, you know, I should have probably done this 5 years earlier, but I'm glad I did it eventually.
Okay, so eventually in your entrepreneurship journey, you might have taken different shapes at different points of time based on the pressure in which you are undergoing. So the fundamental point is to keep the purpose intact, your entrepreneurship purpose. What do you feel the strengths that are needed? You should not deviate from your fundamental purpose to keep the purpose intact, and what are the strengths that are needed?
I'm glad you asked this question. I'm glad you used the word purpose because I keep on telling young people who want to become entrepreneurs, there has to be a purpose. There has to be a reason why you want to do that business. If you start a business because this is in fad, a lot of money there, investors are interested in this business, therefore let me try and figure something out. Eventually, when, you know, because see, the journey will never be smooth. Journey is always going to be ups and downs like this. If you do not have the passion for a particular thing, till the journey is fine, you will be okay with it. The moment you start hitting some challenging spots, the first temptation to say, okay, forget it, let me go and take a job. That will be, you know, top of your mind. And therefore, I keep on telling people, don't get into doing anything unless you are very clear as to why that really appeals to you. And once you sell that to yourself, saying that, look, this is my passion and this is the reason why I exist, I think you will be able to then, you will have the tenacity and you will have the persistence to really live through the ups and downs that you will encounter in that journey. And did I know all of this maybe 20, 25 years ago? No. But when I started analyzing, when I realized that, you know, what eventually gets me back is this whole entire purpose of saying that I want to enable 100,000 people to be job creators in my lifetime. And therefore, everything that I do aligns to that. Whether I go and teach in business schools about entrepreneurship, whether I write a book, whether I create an accelerator, whether I mentor companies through forums like TIE, or whether I create a venture capital fund, which is what I do now, which is investing in younger companies. All of that is directed towards the single purpose of saying I want to create 100,000 entrepreneurs in the country.
Yeah. You know, anything that you do with passion, obviously, you know, you will never know that it's getting built. It's like building a castle. If you have a long haul, say 10 years, and you keep moving on a quarter to quarter basis, if you're passionately moving it 3 or 4 years down the line, when you look back, there is a half-built castle out there. So that's driven by one, passion, second, undeterred focus. So generally, what happens is, when I was running my organization, we have a lot of ideas that used to come, and we used to try and pursue many of the ideas. But when we moved to the new management, when Orkla came into picture, they were very clear that these are the four things which we will be concentrating, and focused on that, keep doing the same stuff. So since I used to go to speak to people, there's this problem, the same thing need to be repeated quarter to quarter, and I was getting bored. At one point of time, I asked Mr. Atley, who is the global CEO of Orkla, that boss, I am telling the same stuff again and again. So he said, boss, that is what you need to do, because if your journey is a long haul, and if you're very convinced with your idea, then keep harping on it, so that you start perfecting it. You start perfecting it in such a way that it will actually get into the entire spectrum of the organization, so that everyone carries that shared vision. So that is how I have seen, my partner company is a 9 billion US dollar company. They have built it basically because, they haven't deterred from what they were doing. They were very focused and passionate, and added to that, they course corrected things in such a way that it all added to what they were trying to do, achieve.
You know, if it's okay, I have a slightly different view on, or a different perspective onto that. And I agree with what you say about focus, but I will contextualize it in between, different structures. I think it's important for you to decide whether you're the creator and enabler, or you're the manager and doer. When you are the manager and doer, absolute focus is absolutely important, because the organization otherwise can't function, and can't function effectively. I think it's extremely important. But if you are an enabler and creator, it is perfectly all right if you are an ideas person, you're instigating ideas across multiple different kinds of areas, and then having the discipline to execute in a focused way. I mean, if you think about it, say for example, Mukesh Ambani. If you tell Mukesh Ambani, no, you should have focused only on this thing, we won't have had the range of companies that he's had. But within each company, when he wears a managing hat, or a manager's hat, or a doer's hat within say the telecom business, of course there has to be tremendous amount of focus. But then if you tell him that no, you shouldn't do focus, and you should not think about retail businesses, because that's completely different, that may not necessarily be there. And there is an appropriate, in my view, there is an appropriate moment and time where you step back, or abdicate your task of being a doer and manager, and have professional set of people who will manage that, and then move your attention to maybe something that can be completely completed. So you can't be focused on the purpose of saying, Mr. Ambani's thing, it could be about increasing the GDP, for example, and he'll do it through a variety of things. But there is a purpose in mind. But within each company, there might be tremendous amount of focus, and I completely therefore respect the point that you're making, but making that distinction.
So now, to both of you, what is the most important factor or factors that has had an impact on your personality while you were navigating to writing from your entrepreneurial journey? What do you feel that is the most important factor? Can you just talk out one or two instances that has got a deep-rooted reflection in your mind in this journey to share with the audience? On the writing side, what that has had an impact on your new perspective, that has had an impact on your personality?
One of the things which I carry in my mind is that if you are not driven by a certain set of values, then the entire organization, it will get to different directions. People who comes into your organization should understand the values which we are trying to emulate in our organization, and if that doesn't happen, it gets completely distracted. So one of the keys which I have written in our book is that I don't know how many of you have heard about this brand called Orange County. So Orange County, when they decided to get to the niche of leisure resorts, one thing which they did was they created an SOP which talks about how our what is going to be the level of service that we are trying to offer to the end consumer. So they had around 10 items, 10 areas which they said this has to be in this model. One is graciousness. You know, have to be very gracious to the end consumer. One is another one is you have to be there can't be any mistakes as far as offering is concerned when it gets to a high-end luxury thing. So there are around 10 items. So this entire 10 things, which started as an SOP for the organization, eventually turned out to be the value systems of the organization. And that is the values right now which takes that organization to the next level. So if in my case, you know, we have referred around 12 companies in our case. So yeah, so all these companies have some way or other had their own experience on how they have dealt with many of these issues by way of a very solid value proposition within the organization.
Question to you.
Yeah, so you know, one of the best advices that I had got from you know, when I started actually writing this book, I went to one of the senior entrepreneurs who had also published a couple of books, and I asked him what are the one or two things that he could guide me, and his point was that, look, you're not writing fiction, you're writing experiences that you want other people to learn from. So therefore, this is not a test of your skill of creative writing. This is a test of your clarity of communication, and therefore keep your language very simple. Try to use as less jargon as possible. And I hope, and that's what a lot of people tell me as well, that the simplicity of language and communication in the book, which is I try to keep that focus on, was primarily because of the advice that this person gave me, that just keep it simple. Don't try to be creative. This book will be read not because of the creativity of language, but because of the simplicity and the clarity of the communication and articulation that you have.
Okay. Now, another funny question is, do you do your activities, I mean, your flashing between your entrepreneurial journey and your writing skill on a very punctuality basis or on a timeline? If the answer is yes, just tell how it has had an impact on your personal life and how do you manage. And if the answer is no, please make it more clear.
No, I am the laziest of the lot. I am completely, I don't work on any specific milestones. My style is completely different. When I completed this particular book, then somebody asked me, what is the next book? Then I said, my next book is on how to work with spouse. So the guy who got the answer, he was actually laughing because he know how me and my wife used to interact. As far as wife runs a business, and when she came into business 4 years back, I was advising her on what to do, what not to do, and stuff like that. But I told her one thing very clearly, that see, 3 years or 4 years down the line, I'm pretty sure that you will teach me more than me teaching you. And what happens when the teacher becomes the student becomes the teacher? So that intricacy is what I mentioned about. I need to write a book on how to work with spouse. So see, it's so simple that it's very easy to say that I sat for 1 hour every day and stuff like that, but that doesn't work. I mean, my friend used to push me for 2 weeks to get 3 to 4 hours of time from me to note down what specific things need to be put into paper.
No, I've got a different experience. I did put myself into some discipline, and I had that discipline for a long time because when my daughter was born, when my daughter was really, when she came into a home for the first time, for 18 years, every Sunday I wrote a letter to her every Sunday, and on her 18th birthday, and she had of course not read all of that. She knew about it. On her 18th birthday, she got that as a PDF. But because of the discipline that I had created, and I didn't want to break up in between, Sunday writing became a very habitual thing to me. But one of the biggest things was, what do I write about today? And the simplest thing that I did was, therefore, go to Quora, whatever question was being asked about entrepreneurship, pick up a random question and start writing my if I had experience, I would give my experience. If I didn't have an experience, I'd just put my perspective onto it. Now sometimes it could be just one or two paragraphs, sometimes it could be 5 pages, depending on how much time and what mood I was in, etc. But I decided not to break that discipline. And sometimes it's not just about the writing, just you being more disciplined and feeling good that you are able to maintain your discipline sometimes does good to you. That's the only reason why I sort of continue doing that.
Okay. So, do you believe in certain common quotes which often is being said that early to bed, early to rise will give you a healthy mindset, fresh mindset, and has that such a attitude contributed to your entrepreneurship journey and writing skills?
On most days, I would probably agree to that, depending on who I'm having for dinner or drinks. Now, then next day we're not necessarily that early, but that's fine. That's life.
I don't stick to all this. Sometimes I get up at 5, sometimes I get up at 8. It all depends on the day.
So, as individuals to this audience, what do you feel? Is it better for them to start penning down their experience and writing individually, or should they do it in collaboration with groups? What are your thoughts, and what is your thought of advice in case many of them take the fantastic insights that you have given to them? How should they do it? Should they do it individually or collaborating?
Penning down experiences will obviously help you in trying to avoid mistakes. But these days, the next generation probably may not be sticking on to your own experience. In Chat GPT, any question you raise, you have 110 answers to it. But it's good that you keep penning down some of your experience, in the sense that it gives you, individually, it gives you some satisfaction that, these are all the milestones which I have covered, and this is how I have reached. And the same thing, I don't think my son will agree to what, yeah.
No, I definitely encourage people to write. It doesn't have to be, write as in write physically. It could be voice notes that you send to yourself on a WhatsApp, etc. But the reason why I say that once in a week, it's important to really, or it's not important, it's nice to really sit back with a cup of coffee or a beer or whatever else that your drink is, and reflect onto the week gone by and put something out, because that process of introspection teaches you a lot, and helps you grow. It has helped. I mean, at least it works for me. I'm not sure it will work for everybody, but it certainly has done wonders for me, and that's the only reason why I do that. Many of the things that I would write may not get published. Occasionally, I will put it on a blog and this and that and stuff, but it's not necessary that it'll be. But it's a self-introspection process, because of which I encourage people to really pen down whatever comes to mind. It may be a poem. It could be one day me and my daughter both wrote a review of a movie. We are not, we've never done that in the past, but we said, okay, we don't have anything to write this week, so why don't we write about this movie? It turned out nice. And then we did it once or twice again, and stuff like that. But it's that process of really just thinking through something that might be just a good, interesting process.
So let us summarize, as we are running short of time, let us summarize the takeaways of this session, which is create value, meritocracy has to come, create 100,000 entrepreneurs, have undeterred focus, start perfecting, and engage into Sunday writing. Friends, you have the books of these two writers. Navas has written Beyond Three Generation, and Mr. Prajakt has written Starting Up and Raising Funds. Both these books are available in the DC Books stall out over here. In fact, both these books are a strategic tool in decision making and navigating this uncertainty in the entrepreneurship journey. I trust this half an hour session has given you fantastic insight with a lot of takeaways for this session. Do keep in touch with both these two successful entrepreneurs even after this session. Lastly, I wish to say thanks on behalf of Thai Kerala for enabling us to host this session, and grateful thanks to KLF for permitting us to take this session here, and specific thanks in particular to both the speakers and to the entire audience in general. Thanking each one of you for your patient hearing. Thank you.